We all encounter challenges, trials, tribulations, difficulties in life, and even difficulties in that in-between stage of asking for what you want out of life and receiving what you want from your life. That time when you're moving out of your comfort zone and into that new dimension of the new you. There's a story I picked up during my travels. This one comes from Asia, and it encompasses these things in this story. There's a lesson in it that I picked up, and I'm hoping that I can share it with you and that it would help you while on your journey. There was a monk that was traveling through a farming village, and a large group of men came in front of him while on the road. The monk stopped, and two men from that group stepped forward, and one spoke and said, "Monk, we ask you, please help us. We are a farming village, and we have planted our seed, and we have not had rain for many weeks, and we are in fear that our crop will die. And if our crop dies, we have nothing to trade for the other goods that we need with other villages, and our families will starve. Please pray to your God and ask that we have rain." The monk spoke to the two representatives and said, "I will help. Please take me to the highest elevation in this area." They did so. They took the monk to an elevation where he could see all of the village's land, the farms they were working, the people, the cities. And the monk said, "I will help you. We will do this together." He said, "First, let's sit down and let's look inward to God and express our need to God." Now, the first representative was skeptical. He says, "Monk, we are not holy men. We ask that you do it." The monk says, "We will do it together." So they sat down and they began to look inward and ask for what their needs were. The first spokesperson, after about a good 10 minutes, stood up and he waited. The second spokesperson looked around at the monk and looked over at the first spokesperson, but he stayed still because the monk stayed still. And the monk stayed there meditating, looking inward. And after about 20 minutes, the second person stood up because the monk was not moving. The monk was just sitting there. The first and second spokesperson, they kind of moved to the side. They waited for the monk. About 30 minutes passed. Monk hasn't moved yet. An hour passed, and the monk hadn't moved yet. And the first person looks and says, well, to the second spokesperson, "I don't think this is going to work. We've asked, and we have no rain yet." So they go over and they gently shake the monk and says, "Brother monk, we have asked, and we have not yet received. Please help us. We're afraid that if too much time goes by, we will not have the rain that we need in order to save our crop." The monk gets up and says, "Now that we have all placed our intention, it is time to put in the work." And they looked at each other and he says, "We must do the rain dance." And the first representative looks at the monk and says, "Monk, we're not holy men. We don't have that power." The monk says, "You do." The first representative looks at the monk and looks at the second person and says, "Okay, we'll try." He says, "What do we need to do, brother monk, for the rain dance?" And the monk says, "Look inward to have God meet your needs. There is no protocol. You dance however your body feels happy dancing." He says, "And you two would take turns." And they looked at each other again, but they decided to listen to the monk. So the first one starts dancing, and he's dancing, and he's a little skeptical. He's dancing. He's not sure if he's gonna, get what he wants, but he dances anyway. And he dances about a full hour, and nothing happens. And he goes to the second hour, and nothing happens. And he stops. And he goes back to the monk, and he says, "Monk, it did not work. We don't have rain, and we need rain desperately, monk." And the monk says to number two, "It is your turn. Go, look inward, and do the rain dance." And the second person gets out there and he goes that first hour and he's looking up at the sky the entire time. His head down a little bit. He dances the second hour, he's looking up at the sky. Does it for the third hour. He makes it about 6 hours. And then he finally stops and he goes back in. Monk, we have not had rain yet. This is not working. Please help us. And the monk says, I said we would take turns. It is now my turn. And the monk goes out and he starts looking inward. And he's dancing and he's doing all the craziest moves. He's just happy, he's smiling, and he's dancing. And this goes on for about an hour. And the first two look at each other and they're just standing there. And then the monk goes on and he's steady moving. This goes on 3 hours. And he's dancing. And they're sitting down because they're tired. And he's just dancing and smiling and laughing. And this goes on 6 hours. And then it goes on another few hours. And the two men fall asleep. And they wake up and they look outside and it's dark. And the monk is just dancing and smiling and laughing, and he's inward, never looks up at the sky. He's just dancing, he's inward, he's laughing, he's smiling, he's having the best time. And this goes on a day. And they're thinking it's got to rain or he's going to have to stop pretty soon. This goes on 2 days. And the monk is not getting any sleep. He's just smiling and laughing and just talking to himself and just dancing. This goes on 3 full days. And they're standing outside, the two men, and then all of a sudden they feel drips of rain when they were thinking this is not going to work. And then after another hour or so, the drops became stronger. And then the monk is still dancing. He's not stopping. And then after another couple of hours, the rain comes down in buckets fulls. It's pouring down hard. And it keeps going, and the monk is steady dancing. He's smiling, he's laughing, and he's dancing, and he's dancing. And the rain comes down even harder, and you can see that the rain was the biggest rain drops or the biggest rainfall they've had in many years. And they began to worry. They said, this may drown our crop. We don't want to lose our crop. And the monk is still out there just dancing and smiling and said, we have to ask the monk to stop. Otherwise, we may lose our crop. They go out and they gently, brother monk, please, we ask that you stop doing the rain dance because we may drown all of our seeds and lose our crop. We just need enough rain to grow our crop. And so the monk comes in and they all sit down. It's in a cave and they sit down and the monk is tired. He takes rest. Everyone takes rest. It's morning time. And the monk, when the gentlemen wake up, the monk is up. He's packed his items. He's ready to leave. And the two farmers look at him and say, brother monk, why did the rain dance not work for us? What did you do that was different than what we did? And the monk asked, he said, when we sat down to ask for our intentions, he said, what did you do? He said, I asked God to please give me rain. So, okay. He says, and you, brother, what did you ask? Or what did you do? He says, I too asked that we have rain. You say, okay. He looked back at number one and he says, when you dance, what was your intention as you looked inward and what happened? He says, I kept asking for rain and I kept looking and I didn't see anything. He says, I wasn't really sure if it would work. He said, you had doubts, brother. You had doubts that it would not work. And where there is doubt, you cannot have progress. And he looked at number two. He says, what was your intent when you started to dance? And you danced for so many hours as well. He says, well, I said I would dance until the rain would come. I said I wanted to look. I looked inward and I asked for rain and I kept dancing, looking for that rain to come, looking for it to come. And I danced so many hours and it never came. He says, number one had a lack of faith. Number two had a lack of perseverance. He says, when I sat down and I looked inward and I prayed for our intent, I saw all the land in my eyes and in my head and in my heart. and I said, there needs to be rain. Let there be rain. He says, when we got up to dance, he says, when I started dancing, I looked again, but this time I had gratitude. In my heart and in my mind, I felt the rain on my head. I felt the rain on my face. I felt the rain on my fingertips and on my arms and on my legs. And I just danced and I gave gratitude for this rain over and over because I saw the land getting what it needed. I saw to trade. I saw the rivers filling up. I saw water in pots, cups. And he just went on and he was in gratitude the whole time, just giving thanks for all the rain that we had received until you gentlemen stopped me and asked me to stop. Take a lesson. When you ask for something and you're waiting to get it, you ask first, let your needs be known inwardly. It says, and then afterwards, you give thanks for receiving it even before it comes. And you must dance, see it inside, and you dance until the rain comes. I hope that story can help give some insight to life for you. Whenever you're going through trials, tribulations, whenever you ask for something and you're waiting, you have to ask and then you have to give gratitude for receiving before you even see it physically. You're calling it into your existence. Ask and it shall be given. Knock and the door shall be open. These have been said since the beginning of time. You have to have faith and perseverance, and you keep dancing until the rain comes. See you next time.